let's have a look. So we have got a problem. We've got a problem, Eileen.
We have. Can you just go back one slide before we kind of get onto that one? Let me just, I was speaking to another client again last week, and partly speaking to the organisation, partly speaking to the PMO, and once again we're in that situation where they don't really understand what a PMO is and what it can do. And so I know Lindsay and I, part of our work at House of PMO is continuously having to address this kind of, well, do you know what a PMO is and what a PMO does? So I thought what I'd do today is just kind of pick out 5 of those elements in terms of what people might think of a PMO that we don't necessarily think is the case, some of the challenges it provides or the impact it has for the PMO in place, but also then trying to give you some tactics to overcome that. And as I say, as I said to Lindsay, these are my suggestions. More than happy that anybody who's got some other suggestions kind of do join in on the chat as ever the chat is going. So on to the first one, which is the age-old, the PMO is for admin only. And one of the challenges, I say they're kind of specifically admin only. I think as we've been doing the service catalogue project, we understand and recognise that there are still a number of PMOs that need to do admin. And I still recall when we had the conference a couple of years ago, we had the NHS PMO, and their most valued service during the COVID was to get the minutes out of the minutes and the actions updated every 24 hours. So, that administrative job is absolutely critical at certain times and just really useful a lot of the other times. The challenge is where individuals in the organisations think the PMO is only for administration. So the impact of that, if Lindsay kind of pulls that, it tends to be in a couple of ways, is that from a PMO perspective, from an organisation, they have very limited expectations of the PMO, and it tends to be tucked away in the corner. So it doesn't really get any opportunities to shine. It doesn't get any opportunities to add value. And unfortunately, it sometimes doesn't necessarily reflect the people who are in the organisation and in the PMO. It's just the PMO isn't really there to do anything. So therefore, it can be kind of really difficult to recruit. And if you're in a situation where, your PMO is not reporting into the right level, then actually they're kind of one of the best things that we can do if we pull up the responses there is to go and do some active stakeholder engagement. Well done, Eileen. So good we named it twice. Is to go and do some kind of real stakeholder engagement around the senior team to find a sponsor who actually understands the potential role of a PMO. I mean, some of these problems arise because everybody's experience of the PMO can be different and has been different and comes with some baggage from kind of some previous experience. But it really is kind of down to kind of hunting around a senior level as you can kind of muster to really get somebody to be a sponsor and work with them to agree and sell to the organisation a PMO that clearly aligns and adds value to the organisation. And I think the challenges kind of going on with this is once that's done, you've also then got to make sure you've got the right staff who are in a position to provide the services to deliver the new PMO vision that gets given. So sadly, in organisations that still exists. Hopefully you don't get in one of those organisations, but if you kind of find that is one of your issues, then perhaps that's a good way to deal with it. So second way that the PMO is understood, and this is kind of one that I think we have to take some accountability for getting ourselves into this position. In terms that the PMO is accountable for all reporting. And we forget, and everybody else forgets, that actually our role is there to collate the reports, collate the information that we're providing with, and perhaps provide some insights and analysis to what we're provided. If people see us as responsible for all of the reporting, it means we spend hours chasing the project managers, the program managers. Can you provide this information? And also, when any information is not provided, whenever we kind of go and present and provide our insights and analysis, the blame gets hung on us at the PMO. Well, why haven't you got all of the reports? And so I think in order to kind of be able to address this, there's a couple of things that we can actually do, if Lindsay brings those up, is that we have to recognise, kind of talking about kind of the service. And it's really interesting working on this service catalogue project about being very clear about who provides what, and recognising that if the PMO agree to deliver some reports to senior managers, they are at that point of agreement signing up the PMs as part of the supply chain to provide that information. So we have to be very clear that when we're kind of putting some reporting in place and promising that to senior managers, that we actually engage with the PMs to let them know what the expectations are of them and what and how they're meant to produce that information. And then the second bit is actually make it very visible. So the RACI, hopefully responsible, accountable, consulted and informed. I nearly forgot that. It's because I always write RC instead, which is a far better way of doing that. But also the SIPOC tables, which is the supplier inputs, process outcomes, and customer, which is what we're putting in the service catalogue for all of the individual services. And then people recognise and are held to account for what they're personally accountable for. So sometimes it's easier to do it right from the beginning to try to do it retrospectively, because people sometimes think you're trying to let yourself off the hook, but actually it really is about kind of having that in place from the word go. So third one that I think people don't really understand is that, and this one kind of really annoys me, and I'll tell you why for a couple of reasons, is because a lot of people think PMO has authority to make decisions. I'm currently running some introductory sessions of PMO for an organisation, and it's really interesting because everybody assumes that the portfolio decisions are being made by the PMO. When I was working in I'm trying to work, I can't remember, it was my last PMO job, but when it came to gate reviews, there was a general assumption that it was the PMO who made the decision whether projects and programs go through the gate. So this causes, if we bring the impact up, this causes a number of problems. Go on, Lindsay, press the button. There we go. Is that we actually get seen as the policeman, and we get this because, and what happens then is that project and program managers don't see us as, kind of part of the solution. They don't see us as people who they should be sharing that information with, people who they can come to for help. They see if they come and tell the PMO will make arbitrary decisions on what needs to happen to their project, what decisions need to be made, what resources are going to be taken off, what tasks that need to be done. And I have to say, there are a number of PMOs who don't help themselves because they also believe that they have the authority to make decisions. And we need to be very clear that if you go back to any project management textbook, the line of authority goes senior executive down to sponsor, sponsor down to project manager down to project team. That's where the authority, that's where the decision making is. And our role is very much around providing advice and guidance. And if, we often say that at senior management level, if the senior managers, execs decide, we've gone through the process of portfolio prioritization and projects should be 1, 2, and 4, and they go with 2, 7, and 26, that's absolutely their call, because they are accountable for managing the strategy and delivering on the strategy. And it's our job to hold up the mirror to that and say, hold on, if you make that decision, there are some issues. And I think we kind of almost forget when it comes down to program and project level, that is still our role. Yes, we don't just jump in and say, well, you can't have this and you can't have that, and you need to do it this way. Our job our job is about saying, well, these are the implications, these are the recommendations, this is the process that should be followed. And if the project and programme don't want to listen, then we have the opportunity to escalate that up to the next part of the organisation. So just a couple of things that we should, I think is helpful for us to respond to that, is just make it very clear, you know, that kind of transparent governance piece. So who makes what decisions, but also in terms of on what basis they make those decisions. So just kind of making that clear again, you know, kind of from a service perspective, but also in some of the reporting and some that we kind of comes back down the way about how we articulate that, about, you know, kind of the executive committee have decided, the overall programme board have made this decision, and we don't kind of take, or don't misrepresent how those decisions have been made. But also make sure that we've got some services in place that, you know, we've said on kind of on what basis decisions are made, then we should be delivering services that help people get through that process to make sure that they can actually kind of survive. So number 4, I think, is the next one. Okay, so I've separated this from admin because I think this is different. This is all about kind of, we're suddenly going to have to fill out 27 forms, and the project that we think we could do in 3 months is now going to take 9 months because the PMO are not there to kind of help us. They're there to kind of just kind of slow us down and kind of put loads of steps in that aren't required. So I think the impact of that, typically that PMs will try to fly their projects under the radar. Oh, it's not big enough to follow the process. Oh, those processes don't apply to us. Oh, that's only for kind of projects over a certain level. And so we end up kind of being ostracized, and there's occasionally a kind of a very big project will come in where we might be allowed to play, but generally you'll find we've got lots of little projects that nobody wants to play with us, even though it absolutely is required. So the responses for this one are actually don't be bureaucratic. I mean, that's me kind of just be, again, you know, we can I work with the PMO who spent a year copying out prints to an MSP to decide on kind of what their local process was. Remember that my husband's favourite saying is one size fits nobody. Be pragmatic and make sure we're available to tailor to suit the size and risk of a project. And if you really want to get some buy-in, find the guinea pig in the who's actually you can help, and then use them as an advocate for the PMO services. And finally, because I want to give enough time to John, is this whole concept is that we don't add value. We're there as an extra kind of overhead, which is a nice to have rather than an absolute requirement. And as we saw in the PMI report, there's a couple of years, is that, you know, we're constantly getting asked about how many people in the PMO, what do they do? Do you really need to have them that senior? And if you've got a really good sponsor, they're constantly having to defend the PMO, which is wearing for them. And if you haven't got a good sponsor, they're going to give in pretty quickly anyway. So one of the things, and we've produced kind of several things of this in the past, is to actually start, just be very clear about why you're there and make sure that your vision statement demonstrates how you're going to add value to the corporate mission, vision or strategy. And make sure that you have metrics, not just at a service level and not just how busy you are, but how you're actually kind of measures the value and the contribution you make to that corporate mission aligned to your PMO vision. So a quick rant through really from me for 5 of organisations who don't understand PMOs and ways hopefully that you can help overcome that in your organisations.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And also, I got a bit engrossed there and a bit funny with the old mouse finger, but thank you very much.